Greetings, TheWarOwl greets you. Last video we discussed how to deal with toxic players. This video will explore how to deal with players in Toxic. Toxic is the dead-end room with the double doors inside of B-Site Nuke. It's named Toxic because of the waste barrels. Counter-terrorists will use this position to camp in order to catch a bomb plant player off guard. It's a difficult position to deal with because of the doors. You can't always tell if someone is hiding in there. So let's look at the many different ways to deal with this spot as a terrorist moving in to plant the bomb. The first step is to ascertain if a player is actually inside Toxic. By simple deduction, if we know the relative positions of enemy players, which you should always be keeping track of, we can ascertain if a player has possibly stowed themselves away. To high probability. What I mean is, consider how the enemy team sets up their players. Think about if a player could have rotated downstairs and into Toxic before you could know about it. If you kill a player guarding ramp, and know that only one player guards ramp, and the vents have not been broken downstairs, that door is closed, it is most probable that a player is not inside of Toxic, but not impossible. However, if a player playing ramp rotates downstairs to avoid death, which they should, and you can't find him, or if the vents are broken when you get down there and there's no CTs challenging your entry into the site, it is entirely possible that a player is inside of Toxic. This is when you have to use your brain, and I know, using your brain is hard work. Every situation will be different. There's an infinite ways we can think about this, so you really have to think quickly, look at the information that you have, and make the decision, can a player, or is it probable that a player is inside of Toxic? If the answer is yes, we move on to the next step. In Counter-Strike, your equipment is a toolbox, and you don't always have all of the tools, so we need to think of the multiple ways to deal with this problem. If you have a smoke grenade, you can smoke out the position so a player can plant, but be mindful that the Toxic player can shoot you through the smoke at common plant positions, so sometimes it makes sense to switch it up a bit. If you have a grenade, you can make the door go boom! This opens up Toxic so you can check it easily, and also so you can flash the player playing in there. It also allows you to molotov it. Keep in mind that a molotov will not always spread out throughout the entire room. Sometimes the areas on top of the Toxic barrels will remain unscorched, and as I've looked at it, some of it seems a little bit random. Nading Toxic will cause damage, but won't always kill the player. So the truth is, at some point, you're probably just gonna have to shoot the guy. So first, let's say the door is still in place. The first sweep of the room reveals everything except for the spots behind the doors. It makes sense to wallbang the player through the doors. On the left side, the player must be sitting on top of the Toxic barrels, so make sure to account for the higher elevation. On the right side, the player is on the ground, so make sure to check both of these spots before thinking that Toxic is clear. And even spamming these doors, the player could still be alive and survive your shots. There is a way that they can go right into the corner and not always die when you start spamming it. Bonus tip! When you're spamming a wall, make sure you don't just sustain the fire on the wall from one position or shoot a little bit and then don't move. Spam a little bit and move a little bit, because if a player sees you spamming through the wall, they'll just spam you right back. So the doors present a probability as well as provide cover. This means it is ideal if the doors didn't exist. Moving into the room to peek him and not knowing what side he's on means flipping a coin. You don't want to do that. You can actually blow up the doors separately, so make sure if you're gonna nade it, the nade lands in the middle. Now let's look at clearing the room when the doors have gone boom. Starting from the left side, it is always possible to see a player ducking on top of the barrel, which is a common spot. If you think a player is there and you see just a little bit of them, you could actually just pre-shoot that spot as you move in. Next, a player could duck down behind the barrel, revealing only his head. That's the next place to look. Then you have to account for a player just standing in the middle of the room somewhere as you move across. It is very common for a player to stand right in the middle. In the final position around the corner, it is possible to hide without being seen. If everything else is clear, then you can move around and pre-shoot that position. If you don't feel you have the equipment to kill the guy in Toxic, it might make sense to bait him out. A fake bomb plant will sometimes get the CTs to show their hand. Your Toxic player could start spamming through the door or even open it up, both revealing his or her position and making them easier to defeat. If someone shoots at you through a smoke, you can sort of figure out where they are and shoot right back through that smoke. If somebody shoots through the door, same thing applies. There is another situation where players might camp in Toxic, being after the terrorists plant the bomb. In this case, all the same rules apply, except you can fake defuse instead of a fake bomb plant to coax them out. And smoking the bomb and trying to ninja defuse is probably not a good idea. What do I mean by this? Well, if the terrorists have planted the bomb, they know where it's planted. The toxic player will be able to spray you down easily through the smoke. However, if you land a smoke inside of toxic, it might distort their sense of direction. Remember, there's something wrong with being a toxic player, but there's nothing wrong with being a player in toxic. I'm TheWarOwl, and I still have no closer.